There comes a moment in every human life when the truth stands quietly at the door, waiting to be acknowledged. It does not shout, it does not demand, yet it carries a weight that bends even the proudest heart. And in this moment, someone who once played confidently with your emotions now finds themselves trembling beneath the very reality they created. They thought your heart was an endless landscape they could wander without consequence, a gentle presence that would always forgive, always stay, always return. They never imagined that the day would come when the silence between you would become louder than their excuses, and the distance would become deeper than their apologies. It is a strange thing how people only recognize the value of what they had once the door has closed behind them. They stand outside that door now, replaying memories they once dismissed, realizing that the years they wasted were not simply moments slipping by. They were opportunities for love, loyalty, and growth that they carelessly let fall through their fingers. The same heart they treated lightly is now the one they long for, the one they cannot find anywhere else, no matter how far they search. And the emptiness they feel is not because they lost you. It is because they finally understand what they were given and how irresponsibly they handled it. There is a particular kind of regret that strikes deeper than pain. It is the regret that comes when a person realizes they were loved in a way they did not deserve, cared for in a way they could not match, protected by a soul they thought would never leave. They remember the warmth you offered freely, the devotion you gave without hesitation, and the patience you carried even when you were hurting. And now, as they stand in the ruins of their own choices, they understand that they did not just waste time, they wasted a blessing. The heart they toyed with has grown wiser, stronger, quieter. You learned to walk without them, to heal without their apology, to rebuild yourself with pieces they once tried to break. But they, on the other hand, live in the shadow of their own decisions. They replay the moments when you forgave them, when you believed in them, when you held on to a future they were too immature to see. And it is in these memories that their deepest regret takes root. For the first time they see clearly. The years they spent playing with your heart were the years they should have been protecting it. The games they played were the very actions that cost them the one soul that ever genuinely cared. And now, in the quiet corners of their life, they face the undeniable truth. The love they wasted has become the loss they cannot bear. They are realizing the love you gave them was far greater than what they ever offered you. And this realization does not come gently. It arrives like a quiet storm, subtle at first, yet impossible to ignore as it grows. There is a moment when a person who once took your devotion for granted suddenly sees the truth illuminated before them, not because you said anything, nor because you demanded recognition, but because life itself has begun revealing what they were too blind or too proud to see. They thought love was common, easily replaceable, something they could find in the next face, the next distraction, the next temporary thrill. But life does not allow such illusions to last forever. Eventually, the heart confronts what the mind tried to bury. The love you gave them was rare. There is a difference between being loved and being entertained. They confused the two. They thought your presence was simply another chapter, not realizing it was the part of the story that held everything together. When you cared, you did so with sincerity. When you forgave, you did so from the depth of your soul. When you believed in them, it was not with conditions or reservations. You loved in a way they did not know how to receive, and because they could not measure it, they dismissed it. Now the absence of that love has become the mirror that forces them to see their shortcomings. In the silence that follows your departure, they are beginning to trace the outline of what you were to them. They remember how you listened when no one else had patience. They recall the way your eyes softened when you spoke to them, the way you held space for their fears, the way you encouraged them even when you were hurting. These memories return, not as gentle reminiscence, but as reminders of the love they mishandled. Phoebe says he loves them. He dreams of the love they mishandled. The moments they once brushed aside now echo in their mind with a weight that grows heavier each day. It is a strange truth of human nature that some people learn the value of love only after they have wounded it beyond repair. They now understand that what you gave them was not ordinary affection. It was the kind of love that sees potential where others see flaws. It was a love that chose them even when choosing you was not convenient for them. It was a love that stood firm even when they pushed it away. And now, in the quiet of their own regrets, they see that they never matched your devotion. They took pieces of your heart without offering anything that resembled the same depth. You were the one who stayed when their world was falling apart. You were the one who tried when they stopped trying. You were the one who held the relationship together when their indifference weakened its foundation. They look back now and realize that you poured years of your life into someone who could not see your worth until you were no longer standing beside them, and this realization is no comfort to them. It is a wound they inflicted upon themselves, a wound that deepens each time they remember how effortlessly you loved them. In the emptiness they now feel, they search for a love similar to yours, but nothing satisfies. They meet new people, but the conversations lack the depth you once brought. They seek comfort in familiar places, but none of those places feel like home. They try to distract themselves with noise, new commitments, new faces, new illusions, but everything pales in comparison to the authenticity you offered so freely. What they dismissed as ordinary now shines in their memory with extraordinary clarity. They realized that your love was not loud or demanding. It was steady, faithful, and profound. You did not seek to control them or change them. You simply wanted to grow with them, to support them, to walk beside them with honesty and hope. And now, when they are left with the consequences of their selfishness, they feel the weight of your absence like a truth they can no longer run from. They know now that what you gave them was more than they ever earned, and more than they ever reciprocated. Their regret is not only rooted in the time they wasted, it is rooted in the love they mishandled. The love they now wish they had valued while it was still theirs to hold. They now see that every moment you stayed was a blessing they misused and misunderstood. And this truth is beginning to unravel inside them with a kind of sorrow they cannot hide from anymore. When you were present, they treated your loyalty like something guaranteed, something that would simply renew itself without cost, without effort, without gratitude. They thought your patience was an endless river, flowing without pause, no matter how many stones they threw into it. They never recognized that every day you chose to remain was a decision rooted in love, not obligation. You stayed because your heart was sincere, not because you lacked the strength to leave. And now that you are gone, they finally understand the weight of your commitment. They replay those days and nights with a clarity that feels almost cruel. They remember the times when you held on while they remained distant, the moments when you comforted them when they offered you nothing in return, the occasions when you forgave them when they would not have forgiven you. Each memory now forms a tapestry of regret, vivid and piercing, reminding them that your presence was not something they earned. It was something you gifted them with, and they squandered it, not because they were incapable of recognizing love, but because they believed it would always wait for them. People often assume that good souls will never walk away. They expect kindness to endure mistreatment, patience to remain unbroken, affection to survive neglect. They thought your heart would keep circling back to them, no matter how carelessly they treated it. But hearts like yours may endure much, yet they do not cling forever. They endure out of genuine love, not desperation. They stay because they see potential, not because they lack options. When you finally stepped back, it was not out of anger, but out of wisdom. And now, as they look back, they see that every second you stayed was a second you were teaching them something. Lessons they refused to learn. It is painful for them now, realizing how much you invested while asking for so little in return. They remember the warmth of your voice, the way you tried to understand even their most confusing emotions, the way you defended them even when they failed to defend you. Every gesture you made was gentle, intentional, and sincere. And every time they dismissed those gestures, they unknowingly pushed away a blessing that most people spend their entire lives searching for. Now, when they look at the people around them, they do not find the grace you once offered. They do not find the patience. They do not find the deep emotional shelter you once provided. They meet new faces, but none of them stay the way you stayed. None of them care with the depth you cared. None of them offer the kind of loyalty that came so naturally from you. And this contrast opens a wound inside them, a wound made of their own choices, their own immaturity, their own neglect. They misunderstood your constancy, thinking it meant you were easily replaceable. They misunderstood your empathy, thinking it meant you would always be available. They misunderstood your silence in their moments of wrongdoing, thinking it meant you were unaffected. But now they see the truth with painful clarity. Your presence was a rare grace, a gentle stability that held together parts of their life they didn't even know were falling apart. As they sit with the absence you left behind, the moments you stayed take on a new meaning. The things they once called small now feel monumental. The nights you supported them through their fears, the days you stood by them when they were lost. The countless times you chose to understand instead of judge. The hidden battles you helped them fight, often without them even realizing you were protecting them. All of these now appear to them as blessings they wasted. What torments them most is knowing that you never needed to stay. You stayed because you believed in love, believed in growth, believed in them. They see now that your loyalty was not something they were entitled to. It was something they should have cherished, nurtured, and protected. And because they failed to do so, they now carry a regret that grows deeper with each passing day. The regret of losing someone who stayed far longer and far stronger than they deserved. Their regret grows because the peace you once brought into their life is something they can no longer find anywhere else. And this realization settles into their spirit like a shadow that follows them through every quiet moment. There was a calmness you carried, a kind of inner stillness that softened even their worst days. You became the place where their restless heart found rest, where their fears lost their voice, where their chaos found direction. They never understood how rare such peace was because they believed it came easily, simply because you offered it so naturally. Now they wander through their days searching for even a fragment of that serenity, only to discover that the world outside your presence feels loud, sharp, and unsettling. When you were in their life, your presence acted like a shelter. You absorbed their storms without judgment. You listened to their anxieties without irritation, and you offered comfort without expecting anything in return. They did not see the depth of your patience or the strength behind your calm words. They thought peace was merely a mood, not realizing it was something you consciously created through love, compassion, and maturity. They believed anyone could provide what you provided, until they met people who could not even offer a fraction of what you gave so effortlessly. It is only now, in your absence, that they understand peace is not built through convenience, but through character. You did not just make them feel safe, you made them feel understood. You did not silence their fears, you gently walked them out of them. You did not hide from their flaws, you embraced them, guiding them into clarity when they were lost in their own confusion. Every time they reached out to you, your presence became the answer. You were the one who took their shattered thoughts and gave them shape again. And now, as their life grows noisier without you, they feel the emptiness of losing the one person who brought them true calm. They try to fill the void with new faces, new routines, new distractions, but nothing works. The laughter they hear now feels hollow. The conversations feel shallow. The company feels temporary. They listen to people speak, but no one's words carry the gentleness yours did. They sit with others, but no one's presence settles their spirit the way yours did. They go through the motions of life, but it feels heavier, harder, colder. They did not realize that the peace they experienced beside you was not common. It was something born from your heart, shaped by your patience, and woven through every quiet gesture you gave them. Even when you stayed silent, your silence was soothing. Even when you were tired, your energy still offered them comfort. You had a way of making them feel anchored, even when they themselves were drifting. There was a steady rhythm in your presence, a groundedness that made everything feel manageable. They now understand that they confused familiarity with effortlessness. They assumed the peace you brought was simply a part of who you were, not something they needed to protect. And now, in the midst of the restlessness they created for themselves, they see the truth they once overlooked. Your presence was not merely peaceful, it was healing. What weighs on them now is not just the absence of your peace, but the realization that they contributed to its disappearance. They remember the moments when they responded to your calmness with chaos, when they met your patience with disregard, when they dismissed your attempts to stabilize their life because they were too lost in their own habits. They rejected the very thing they now crave, thinking they had time to appreciate it later. But later never came, and now the echoes of what you once provided haunt them in ways they never anticipated. Their regret deepens each time they try to recreate what you gave them. They seek comfort but find indifference. They seek understanding but encounter confusion. They seek warmth but meet coldness. No matter where they turn, nothing compares to the peace your heart once brought into their world. That peace was a rare gift, not a common experience, and now they live with the burden of knowing they held something extraordinary and let it slip away through thoughtlessness. And so they sit with an ache that has no remedy, realizing that losing you was losing the calm they never knew they depended on. They see now that the peace you offered was not simply a feeling. It was a refuge, and the sorrow they carry is rooted in one painful truth. The refuge they once took for granted is now a door they can no longer open. The memories they took for granted are haunting them with a clarity they cannot escape, and this haunting does not happen in the loud moments of their day. It happens in the quiet ones, when the noise fades and truth steps out from the shadows. They once lived carelessly with the memories you created together, treating them like fleeting snapshots instead of sacred moments. They did not realize how deeply those memories had woven themselves into their heart until now, when each one returns with a force that steals their breath. What they once dismissed as ordinary moments have become the very things they now replay with longing and regret. They recall the sound of your laughter, not because it echoed loudly, but because it carried a softness that made even the darkest days feel brighter. They remember the small gestures you made, gestures they barely noticed at the time. The way you checked on them when they were quiet, the way you tried to understand their moods without being asked, the way your presence filled the space with warmth. These memories, insignificant to them then, have become the fragments of comfort they desperately cling to now. But these fragments offer no comfort today. They offer only reminders of what they lost. Their mind returns to the conversations you shared, conversations they thought they would have forever. They remember the way you listened, really listened, in a world where most people only wait to speak. They remember the way your words steadied their heart, the way you tried to guide them gently, even when they were pushing you away. Those talks, once ignored, now echo inside them with a weight they were not prepared to carry. Every sentence they recall now has a different meaning, because now they hear the love behind your words, a love they did not recognize when it was freely given. What haunts them most is not the grand memories, but the simple ones. The days when you sat beside them without needing anything in return. The nights you stayed awake listening to their fears. The mornings when your smile was the first reassurance they needed. These small acts were the quiet proofs of your devotion. Proofs they never honored. Proofs they now relive with a longing that pierces deeper each time the memory resurfaces. They know now that these were the moments that shaped the foundation of what you two shared, and these were also the moments they treated with the least care. Time has a way of introducing lessons when it is too late to repair what was broken. They find themselves reaching mentally for memories that once felt stable and comforting, only to realize that those same memories now stand as reminders of their own negligence. Each moment you gave was a gift, but they treated it like an obligation. Each effort you made was a kindness, but they treated it like a routine. Each sacrifice you silently endured was an act of love, but they treated it like a habit. And now, in the empty spaces where you no longer exist, those memories return, sharper, clearer, more unforgiving. They remember the look in your eyes when you believed in them, even when they doubted themselves. They remember the way you held hope for both of you, even when they had given up. They remember your patience, a patience they mistook for weakness, not knowing it was strength disguised as gentleness. These memories do not fade with time. Instead, they grow more vibrant, more alive. They play in their mind like scenes from a story they abandoned too early, a story they now wish they could re-enter, but no longer have the right to. Every memory now serves as a mirror, reflecting not only what you once were to them, but also what they failed to become for you. They see themselves standing beside you with indifference, where there should have been gratitude. They see themselves choosing pride where there should have been humility. They see themselves walking away from your heart while you were still holding theirs carefully in your hands. This realization becomes their heaviest burden. The memories they now cherish were the moments they once wasted. In the stillness of night, when distractions fade and truth stretches its wings, those memories rise like silent ghosts. They come to remind, not to comfort. They come to reveal, not to soften. And as each one passes before their eyes, they face the reality they spent years avoiding. The memories they ignored are now the memories that won't let them rest. And the soul they once took for granted is now the soul they cannot forget. They finally understand that your absence is louder, heavier, and more painful than your presence ever was. And this understanding arrives not as a single realization, but as a slow unraveling within them. When you were present, they barely noticed the way your presence softened the edges of their life. They did not pay attention to how your voice eased their worry, or how your quiet loyalty kept them grounded. To them you were simply there, reliable, steady, familiar. But now, with the space you once filled so effortlessly standing empty, they feel the gravity of your absence pressing on them in ways they never expected. Your silence carries a weight that their mind cannot shake. It follows them into their thoughts, into their conversations, into the moments when they try to pretend nothing has changed. They used to take comfort in the sound of your messages, your laughter, your gentle reminders that they were not alone. Now the stillness where those sounds once lived has become a kind of thunder, a silence that does not fade but grows louder the longer they try to avoid it. The quiet you left behind speaks to them more clearly than any words ever could, and what it says is something they can no longer deny. They had no idea how much of their emotional stability depended on your presence, until that presence disappeared. They once believed they were self-sufficient, strong, unaffected. They treated your consistency as something ordinary, something unmoving, something that would remain whether they respected it or not. But now they feel the shift in the air around them. Without you, their days feel longer, their thoughts feel heavier, and their emotions feel strangely unanchored. What was once predictable in their world has become uncertain, and the absence of your groundedness has left them stumbling in ways they never anticipated. Your absence has a way of reminding them of every moment they dismissed you, every effort of yours they overlooked, every kindness they returned with indifference. When someone becomes accustomed to the light, they forget what it means to live in the dark. You were the warmth they assumed would always greet them. But now that the warmth has gone, the coldness of their new reality cuts deeper, reminding them that your presence was not simply comforting, it was life-giving. They find themselves reaching for their phone, only to remember that your messages no longer appear. They hear something funny and instinctively think to share it with you, only to feel a knot in their chest when they remember there is no longer a you to receive it. They sit in moments of stress and find themselves waiting for your reassurance, then realize that the reassurance they once took for granted is not coming anymore. These small moments build up like waves, and each one carries the sting of loss. They did not realize that your presence was the one steady rhythm in their chaotic life. You had a quiet way of calming storms they had learned to accept as normal. You had a strength they leaned on even when they pretended they didn't need support. They remember now the times when your presence turned their loneliness into companionship, their fear into understanding, their confusion into clarity. Losing you means losing the peace they never earned, but always benefited from. Your absence has become a reflection of their choices. It exposes the carelessness they once hid behind excuses. It reveals the selfishness they cloaked in pride. It shows them that losing you was not an accident. It was the natural result of repeatedly ignoring the treasure standing right in front of them. And now the truth of your absence is unavoidable. What they wasted cannot be reclaimed, and what they lost cannot be replaced. What hurts them the most is not simply that you are gone, but that you left without slamming a door. You walked away with grace, not anger. You stepped back with dignity, not revenge. And that quiet departure has become the most haunting part of all. Your absence carries a purity that reminds them of the love you once offered so wholeheartedly, and the contrast between your grace and their behavior digs into them with a remorse they cannot outrun. Your absence now teaches them what your presence once tried to show. That love is fragile, that devotion is precious, and that hearts like yours do not stay where they are mistreated. They see now that the silence you left behind is not empty. It is filled with the truth of everything they failed to value. Their heart is restless because they played with someone who was sincere, while they themselves were not. And this restlessness has begun to spread through every corner of their life, like a quiet ache they cannot soothe. For years they believed sincerity was something simple, something anyone could give, something anyone could replace. They assumed your devotion was a reflection of your weakness, not your strength. They thought the purity of your intentions made you naive, not noble. And while you loved them with a transparent heart, they approached you with a guarded one, offering fragments of themselves while taking all of you. They now sit with the weight of this imbalance, The sincerity you gave so openly is something they never managed to reciprocate, not because you were difficult to love, but because they lacked the emotional maturity to value what was placed before them. They played games because games were easier than honesty. They kept distance because distance felt safer than vulnerability. They chose half-truths because they feared the responsibility of being fully seen. For you, soft-hearted, genuine, unwavering, you invited them into a kind of connection they were not ready to honor. What they feel now is not merely regret, it is a disquiet that lingers in their chest, reminding them that sincerity cannot be imitated or replaced once lost. They remember the moments when your honesty cut through their confusion. They remember the way your intentions were pure, even when they responded with doubt. They remember the way you opened your heart slowly, tenderly, with trust, not knowing that they were giving you only broken pieces of theirs. That contrast has become impossible for them to escape. Every time they think back, they see how uneven the emotional exchange truly was. You approached them with openness while they carried secrets. You spoke with clarity while they used words to hide. You offered commitment while they offered convenience. You gave love as a gift while they treated it as a tool. At the time, they believed this imbalance didn't matter, but now, looking back from the ruins of what could have been, they see how deeply your sincerity exposed the immaturity in their own heart. The odd thing is, until now, the restlessness they feel now is not sudden. It is the accumulation of every moment they ignored your truth. It rises in their mind when they try to sleep, reminding them of the times they could have been honest but chose to protect their ego instead. It returns when they meet new people, because no new connection holds the purity of intention you once offered them. They find themselves comparing everyone to you, not because they want to, but because their soul knows it will never encounter sincerity like yours again. They once thought sincerity made you predictable, but now they see it made you trustworthy. They once thought your openness made you fragile, but now they see it made you courageous. They once thought your loyalty made you cling, but now they see it made you steadfast. All the things they belittled in you are the very qualities they now search for, desperately, yet never find. This restlessness also comes from the realization that you were sincere, even when they didn't deserve it. You tried to understand them when they were distant. You forgave them when they acted carelessly. You waited for them when they offered no clarity. They now replay these moments with a sharp awareness of their own shortcomings. They know you were the one who tried. You were the one who stayed. You were the one who cared beyond reason. And now, in the absence of your sincerity, their heart struggles to find peace. They carry a quiet guilt, not because they miss the comfort you gave them, but because they finally understand the depth of what they failed to give in return. Your sincerity was a mirror, revealing who they could have been, if only they had chosen honesty over pride, vulnerability over fear, authenticity over ego. But they chose to play instead of build, and now they live with the consequences of their own immaturity. In the end, their restlessness is born from one unavoidable truth. They mishandled a heart that loved without hidden motives, without conditions, without manipulations. A heart that was real, a heart that was sincere. A heart they will spend years remembering, but never again deserve to hold. And this truth follows them like a shadow, reminding them that the games they played cost them the one person who never played with them. And yet, by playing with them, they are now confronted with the truth that the time they wasted with games could have been the years they built something meaningful with you. And this realization cuts deeper than any pain they ever tried to hide. Time is a strange teacher. It exposes what we ignored, magnifies what we dismissed, and reveals the value of what we failed to cherish. They once treated the years you gave them as endless, believing there would always be another chance, another season, another opportunity to make things right. They assumed your patience had no limits, but now, with those years standing behind them instead of before them, they finally understand the weight of what they squandered. They look back and see moments that should have been milestones, yet became memories of disappointment instead. They remember days when you reached out with hope and they responded with indifference. They remember nights when you tried to speak from your heart, but they chose silence, avoidance, or pride. They remember times when you were ready to grow and they chose to remain immature. These reflections do not come gently. They rise with a force that leaves them breathless. Because time has revealed the truth they refused to face. They were not playing with moments. They were playing with a future. You offered them years filled with potential. Years that could have been shaped into something strong, stable, and beautiful. You were ready to build a foundation, to grow roots, to create a life together that was not fragile or uncertain. But instead of meeting you with the same dedication, they chose inconsistency. Instead of matching your loyalty, they chose convenience. Instead of valuing the stability you offered, they ran after distractions that meant nothing. And now the emptiness they feel is not just the loss of you. It is the loss of what those years could have become. The truth sinks deeper each time they reflect on how differently things could have unfolded. They imagine what life would look like now if they had chosen honesty instead of excuses, courage instead of fear, commitment instead of delay. They imagine the memories you two could have created, the milestones you could have reached, the love that could have matured into something unshakable. These thoughts do not comfort them, they torment them, because the realization comes with a painful clarity. They had everything they needed to build something real, but they lacked the wisdom to see it. They now understand that time is not something we borrow without consequence. Every careless choice, every moment of disregard, every emotional game they played, carved a distance between you that grew too wide to cross. They thought they could always come back, that you would always be waiting, that the past could easily be repaired. But when they finally turned around, they found an emptiness where your presence used to be, a silence that told them the years they wasted could never be recovered. They feel the weight of what you offered them, a chance to grow into a better version of themselves, a chance to break free from the patterns that kept them small, a chance to learn what real love looks like. They see now that they were not only hurting you, they were sabotaging their own future. You gave them an opportunity that not everyone receives, a chance at a love that was patient, resilient, and transformative, but they treated it with neglect, assuming it would always be available. In the life they live now, with you gone and time revealing its truth, they face the consequences of their choices. They watch others build the kind of love they once mocked, the kind of commitment they once avoided, the kind of future they once postponed. They see people choosing each other wholeheartedly, and they realize this is what you wanted with them. But they were too consumed with their own distractions to recognize it. The pain they feel now is not only emotional, it is existential. They know they cannot reclaim the years you gave them. They know they cannot rewrite the story. They know the time that once held promise for both of you is gone forever. And this understanding becomes their deepest regret, the realization that they didn't just lose you. They lost the future they could have built with the only person who was ever ready to build it with them. They know deep inside that losing you was not just losing a person. It was losing a rare soul they may never encounter again, and this truth follows them with a heaviness that grows stronger each day. At first, they tried to convince themselves that what they lost was simple, replaceable, something that time or new faces could easily mend. But with every passing moment, the illusion fades a little more. They now understand that rare souls do not come in abundance. They do not reappear in new bodies. They do not mimic themselves through substitutes. You were one of a kind, and they let you slip through their fingers as if souls like yours were common. They feel this loss not in dramatic moments, but in the quiet ones, when they are surrounded by people who speak but do not understand, who stay but do not care, who exist beside them but do not bring warmth. It is in these moments that they recognize what made you rare. Your presence was not loud, but it was comforting. Your kindness was not performative, but genuine. Your love was not impulsive, but enduring. Your love was not impulsive, but enduring. And now that they stand in the cold shadow of your absence, they realize how deeply you change the atmosphere of their life, simply by being part of it. They replay memories of you, not because they want to, but because their heart refuses to let go of the truth. They remember the way you spoke with sincerity, the way your words carried meaning, the way your spirit softened their own burdens. They recall the way you loved, not with conditions or calculations, but with a gentleness that made them feel safe in a world that had often been unkind. This kind of love is not something that can be purchased, imitated, or forced. It can only be received when fate is generous, and they now know fate was more generous with them than they ever realized. They encounter new people now, but none of them carry the depth you had. No one else listens with the same patience. No one else sees with the same clarity. No one else offers affection with the same purity. They search for pieces of you in others, hoping to find even fragments of what was once theirs, but every comparison leaves them disappointed, because you were not made of fragments. You were whole, sincere, and irreplaceable. They realize now that the world is filled with many faces, but very few souls. The truth they carry inside is that losing you has changed the way they experience everything. Food tastes the same, places look the same, life moves the same, but something essential has gone missing. It is as if the world lost a shade of color the moment you walked away. They did not see it at first, but now, when their days feel dull and their nights feel heavy, they understand that the missing color was you. You were the warmth in their winter, the kindness in their chaos, the softness in their hardness, and losing that has left a void nothing else fills. This understanding settles in their heart with a sting that deepens over time. They know they were not replaced. You simply returned to the place where your spirit could breathe freely. You went back to a life where your heart would no longer be mishandled, and they were left with the consequences of their own neglect. They watch you from afar now, perhaps healing, perhaps growing, perhaps rediscovering the strength they once overlooked. And with every step you take toward wholeness, they are reminded that they lost not just someone who loved them, they lost someone who would have walked through fire for them. They also know, deep down, that people like you are not written into every chapter of life. You are a rare intersection of loyalty, kindness, depth, and resilience. You are the kind of soul that changes people simply by existing. They may pretend to be fine, they may distract themselves, they may bury the truth beneath pride. But when the world grows quiet, they confront the reality that losing you was losing a blessing they were never prepared to honor. And this truth, more than anything, is what hurts them the most. Rare souls do not return once they've been pushed away. They do not circle back to where they were wounded. They do not offer themselves twice to the same hands that failed to hold them. They know they will search for you in places you no longer belong, and each search will remind them that the rare soul they lost was the one they should have cherished when they had the chance. In the end, what remains is a truth neither time nor distance can erase. You were never the one who lost. You simply stepped away from a story that refused to honor your worth. While they sit with the weight of their own choices, you walk forward carrying the strength those choices taught you. Their regret is the echo of the love they mishandled. But your healing is the proof that your heart was always made for something greater. What they wasted has now become what shaped you, and what they lost has become what will lead you toward a future built on truth. Let them face their regret. Let them wrestle with the time they threw away. Your story is not defined by those who played with your heart. It is defined by the courage you found when you finally chose to protect it.